Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And as you've seen from my previous short, we are continuing the Kylie vibe. So we're going to step back in time, all the way back to the Rhythm of Love era. Just look at that box set. So grab a cuppa, relax, sit back, and let's look back together. Enjoy. We're now taking a look back at Kylie's Rhythm of Love era. Now this is the third album of 4 that she, well, technically 5 if you count the greatest hits, but let's not. 4 actual albums with PWL, Stock Aitken and Waterman. And this third release came out in the UK in the 12th of November 1990. It reached number 9 and it had 100,000 copies by the end of that year. And it went on to sell just under 1 million copies worldwide. Now, obviously, that's quite a drop from the previous 2 albums, and we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. In Australia, it was released in December 1990 and reached number 10. So again, surprising looking back, considering how big the singles are now in terms of fan popularity, they didn't do as well. It was also re-released as the Gold Edition in June 1991, and I have one of those here, like so. And that was to coincide with the Enjoy Yourself tour, which had started in Australia and East Asia. But overall, kind of a lukewarm response in terms of sales-wise. Did okay, but it certainly didn't compare with 6 million and 3 million of the previous 2 albums. So in terms of releases for this album, there were 4 singles that were released in the UK, which all went top 10. So before the album came out, the lead single is the now classic Better the Devil You Know As the Rest of Us of a certain age. So that's not a shock. The second single then came later in October, just before the release of the album, and that was Step Back in Time. And that was a disco-influenced, sampled pop song. It's done very well long-term in terms of fan favourites, in terms of repeat plays. I think it's very well considered as one of her big pop songs. Personally, not my favourite off the album. Better the Devil is such a strong single. Anything to follow that up was going to be difficult. The third one then came after the album release, and that was What Do I Have to Do in January 1991. And that is stunning. Amazing black and white video. Very Paris, very chic, very dance. Again, I wonder whether maybe Madonna's Vogue was a bit of an influence here. And also, Blink and You'll Miss It appearance from her sister, Danny, in the video. And then the front PWL. So looking at this album, in terms of context and background, Kylie had started to have more creative input by this point. She's talked about this numerous times. She was obviously of an age where she was going out clubbing. She had recently connected and was dating Michael Hutchence, who is, for those who may not be old enough to remember, go and look him up. He was an absolute rock god, lead singer of INXS, and just sex on legs. Anybody at the time was just like, who is this man? This energy is insane. So you can see at the time, it would have also maybe been a little bit shocking. They certainly made it out in the press that it was shocking that someone like Kylie was with someone like Michael. But actually, they worked. They seemed to work. And that clearly had an influence on him, helping her see that she could be much more creative and have much more control over her career. Now, famously, we recognise that PWL, by its very nature, for it to be a success, they were in charge. They wrote singles, arranged, produced. They did all the visuals, they did the artwork, the videos, all of it was all produced by PWL. So any artists who wanted to step away from that and maybe be a bit more independent of their own image and view was not going to go down well. So I think that was probably causing a bit of a rub between Kylie and Co at the time. So obviously club music was still taking hold in 1990 and moving into 1991. And I think they recognised, unlike Enjoy Yourself, where that felt more of a rub against what was commercially out there. If you listen to the Enjoy Yourself album and then listen to something like Kathy Dennis, Black Box, Technotronic, completely different worlds. One sounded like bubblegum 50s pop, the rest didn't. It sounded new and fresh and exciting. And they all realised they had to move with the times. So this album's very much about getting hold of that dance sound and making it into more of a mainstream pop sound. However, there are some nuggets on the album that really do pull into that dance sound at the time. And I think, let me just check the track listing. It's Japanese one. There we go. I would definitely say Things Can Only Get Better is one that absolutely connects in with that harder house, 4x4, high energy club sound. And P obviously being a DJ and knowing the community, knowing that the majority of Kylie's fans were teenage girls and gays. Let's be real. And it still is very much the gays, right? Except the teenage girls have grown up and now got kids of their own. So he recognised that sound had to shift. So I think they blended high energy with commercial dance and pop and created this absolute pop masterpiece. It's a fantastic album. It's peak Minogue. Anyone who disagrees, well, you can disagree all you like, to be honest. It's my opinion. It's my channel. But I think this is where Kylie really shone, really came alive. So what else was happening at the time? So part of the album was recorded in LA. Now, interestingly, they recorded it with Stephen Bray, who co-wrote some of the tracks. Kylie also co-wrote some of the content as well, and I think that was PWL's appeasing of Kylie's creative control at the time and pushbacks. And I think Kylie was also more involved in the visual element of the album as well. Clearly, again, very heavily influenced by three people, particularly at the time. Madonna, as I've said, Martika, who was being very big across the world with her Prince-produced written album, and Kathy Dennis. Now, obviously, they would go on to work on some really big hits, with Kathy Dennis writing some of Kylie's future biggest songs. So that came full circle for them, which I'd love to see that. That was great. Also at the time, Rhythm of Love started a tour in Australia in February 1991. And it was in Australia and then went to East Asia. And then when they saw kind of what the reaction was and the feedback, and obviously preparing for the next album, which they would have already started some tentative recording, and that would end up being Kylie's last album with PWL, they turned it into the Let's Get To It tour, which travelled Europe in late 1991. And that was really the start of the end for Kylie and PWL. The writing was on the wall. Musically, the world was moving. Kylie was moving. She was wanting more creative control. And that would go on to some really interesting places with Deconstruction, which we shall come onto. Now, as I've touched on as well, one of the things that really changed with this album was the visual identity of the album. This is grown-up Kylie. This is cropped up, sexy, adult Kylie, which was very different and a marked difference to the Enjoy Yourself visuals of the previous album. She was clearly heavily influenced by moving away from the girl next door look to cool club, 90s, hip. Bear in mind things like The Face was a really big magazine at the time. She was hanging around with Michael Hutchence, who obviously was sexy, leather, rock god. All of that influence around her was really having an impact. and helping her see where she wanted to go. So in terms of what else was happening, and in the previous video I talked about the top 3 singles in the UK at the time. I've got some really bad news, folks, but the top 3 singles at the time the album came out were... I'll just read them, shall I? Number 1, Unchained Melody. Now, if I remember rightly, that was because of the movie Ghost, which was huge at that point. So if that helps visualise what was happening, Patrick Swayze, pottery wheel, all of that stuff. I can't even believe it. Number 2 was Fog on the Tyne with Gaza, who is a English Newcastle, at the time, English Newcastle United football player. And why? Why Britain? Why? What is wrong with you? And at the 3rd, you did redeem yourself really well, UK. Well done. Thank you. Round of applause. Was the former PWL artist Kim Appleby, who's now solo, sadly after the loss of her sister to cancer, with the fantastic pop track Don't Worry, which I still think is one of PWL's best songs. And I better fact check that is PWL. I think it is. But it's a perfect pop song. I love that song. So that was the top 3 in the UK at the time. I've not looked for America because the album wasn't released in the States formally. I said Enjoy Yourself was the last album that was released, right the way through to then Fever was the next mainstream American release. Obviously, it was released through UK, Europe, Asia, and Australia. But as I said at the start of the video, sadly, it kind of only really sold about 1 million copies. And looking back, I'm kind of surprised at that. It's a good album. It's a good, strong album. And for some reason, it just didn't sell. Don't know why. If any of you have any thoughts about why? Again, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Why do you think that happened? Had the Kylie bubble burst? Or actually, come to think of it, was that actually just a PWL backlash? Bearing in mind at that point, we'd had years and years of back-to-back hits from PWL. And I wonder whether people were just sick of it. And it didn't matter whether it was Kylie, Jason, Sonia, Cindy, Big Fun, Brother Beyond, whoever it was, at this point, because of rave, house, dance, and all of that starting to explode across the UK, PWL just wasn't cool. It wasn't cool to like it, and only teenage girls and gays liked it. So perhaps the writing was on the wall for them too at this point. And interestingly, I think PWL certainly produced a lot less from this point on, and then moved away from the Stock Aitken Waterman brand and became PWL Records, and obviously had huge success with the likes of Steps a few years down the line. We're now going to continue our step back in time, and we're going to take a look through some of the different editions of the album that's been released and unbox them and have a look at what makes them different. So I've got a few more this one that I did for Enjoy Yourself. So let's get to it, shall we? Oh, wrong album. Should we step back in time instead? Yeah, let's do that. So our first release is the UK version of the Gold edition. And as you can see, this is limited edition Gold album. And it includes 3 extended mixes. So on the back, you can see the track listing. And then let's have a look at the actual CD itself. So again, pretty much looks the same as the standard CD, but it's just got some additional tracks on there. Now, the 3 additional tracks on there is a remix of Step Back in Time, What Do I Have to Do, and Shocked. Now, these are all mixes that are commercially available in lots of other releases. So the inside is the blue look on the beach with the feathers, and then the booklet inside. Pretty standard pictures. Looks like they're all from a similar shoot. That's from Step Back in Time, I think. She liked being on the beach in this shoot. Well, that's a random one. Kind of seems like a random look compared to the rest. because all the rest are feathers and that. So I'm not quite sure what they were thinking there. But that is essentially the release for the tour edition that came out when it became the Let's Get To It tour in the UK. So, what next? Let's put you over there. So the next one, I've got the standard edition of the album. Again, exactly the same. But what have we got here? Ooh. We've got Shocked, which is a bonus CD single, because this is the Australian release with 3 extra mixes of Shocked on. And as you can see there, for those not old enough to know, this sticker here is what you would get if you purchased an album from, say, HMV, Our Price, Virgin, Tower Records. Yes, we had all those record stores back in the day, and that is the label to show that it was an import from another country. And you usually pay a little bit more for these than you would standard edition. So this would have probably been, I would estimate, about £20 to £25, as opposed to, say, £12 for the standard release of the album. But essentially all it had was a slightly different inside case and then the CD single extra. Now this next one is actually, track listing wise, exactly the same as the previous one. However, again Australian, it's actually classified as the Rhythm of Love Shocked double disc. Let's open it up and look inside. So again, same CD, same insert. And then again, same single. So I hadn't realised I actually had a double of this one, but that's definitely a different release of it compared to this one, which has the same back. Not just says Festival Export. It's the same edition, both Australian. But I like that. That's really cute. So I'm now going to move on to the re-release that happened with Cherry Red Records in 2015. Now, as you've seen in my previous videos, all 4 of the first 4 PWL albums were re-released as different editions of the album. So there's the collector's edition and the limited edition. And this one, you can see, has a lovely sticker on the front. Let's see if I can... There you go, that's better. Great cover with the reflective gold on there. And then on the back, you can see there are 2 CDs and a DVD with a big K logo for the album on this version. Now, the only difference between the 2 editions, same as the others, is these 3 are exactly the same, but the big edition has a much bigger booklet, a poster and a picture disc, and we'll come on to that in a second. So let's start looking at this. As you can see, it's got the lovely little prints around the side of it. So when we open it, we get the mini booklet with the reflective Kylie logo on. I still think that's gorgeous. It's almost perfect branding for her at the time. Picture from the standard CD on the back. And then a few more pictures that are not on the standard CD, because obviously it's a limited edition. So there's a few shots that are the same, but quite a few like these, like that one, definitely that one, definitely the one on the right. That's a very different look, isn't it? Beautiful. From the video. So again, some video shots and a lovely intro from Kylie. And then each of the discs are housed in its own little separate little case inside as well, with the track listing on the rear. So again, same as the previous versions, each one will have a different colour. And that is the collector's edition of Rhythm of Love, released by Cherry Red in 2015. So let's have a look at the bigger one of the two. Look at that. Now, these are fantastic editions. You've seen the first couple already, so you know what to expect if you watch that video. So again, logos and wording around the sides, the lovely K, Rhythm of Love. Then the back, we have the LP, CD1, CD2 and DVD track listing. And I'll come back to the track listing at the end of this video. So let's get this open. So as per the previous editions, it starts with a card piece with the cutouts with the vinyl inside. Now on the reverse is the track listing. Oh, and then we've got the lovely K on the reverse of that. Actually, if I put it in that way, how does that look? This is where I'm going to make a complete mess of it. Ooh, I'm making a mess. So it would look like that if you had the K at the front, but that doesn't quite work, I don't think. So let's take that out. So you have K on that side, nothing on that side. Let's take out the picture disc and have a look. So we have the K, as you can see, and PWL logo at the bottom. And then if we flip it over, it is the album cover. Gorgeous Rhythm of Love album cover. Beautiful. Now the other bit that is in there is the massive fold out poster, so you can see the size of it compared to the CD and even the vinyl. This is a massive poster, absolutely gorgeous picture of the cover. Shame she's got a crease. But again, it's another lovely addition to the release. It's only single-sided. There isn't a picture on the other side. It's a little bit of a shame, as I said before, there isn't an additional version, so you could actually have these up on your wall as the full posters, but that's in the box as well, and it's rather lovely. So the next item that's in there is the same as previous boxes, is a gorgeous booklet. Again, same album cover, previous album insert, cover on the back, and then a selection of the different pictures. So again, similar to the smaller booklet, but there's more pictures, I think, in this one, and there's more pages. But there are some lovely pictures in here as well. That's a very different look. That's not in the smaller booklet for sure. Those two definitely are. And then a picture of the different releases. Again, such a 90s look, that, isn't it? Gorgeous. From one of the videos. Again, bit of Devil, bit of the same photo shoot for the video. Again, video still. And that's in there as well. And that is a lovely extra in there with some really good quality. And actually high quality printed as well, so it looks nice. And then similar to the previous, we have the 3 separate discs, which are identical, but they come in a different sleeve. And, oh, sorry, I forgot, there's postcards as well. Completely forgot about these on the previous ones. Just postcards, and then again, the 3 discs as per the previous, and I think they're exactly the same as what I've just showed you. Yeah. So that's a copy, but they come with postcards in a lovely outer sleeve, which is this. And I think there's another one here. Oh, there's another one. Now that, to me, is very obviously inspired by Madonna of the time. And that is the release of the now very rare and very collectible limited collector's edition of the Rhythm of Love Cherry Red release. Hope you've enjoyed having a look at that. And we're just going to do a bit of a summary once I've packed this back up. There we go. Now, at the time of this being recorded, it's February 2025. The Tension tour has just started, so all eyes are back on Kylie, as they rightly should be. And if we look back at this album, Rhythm of Love, I think it's fair to say that this really was the turning point in Kylie's career. She took control of her image. She took more control of her sound. She took more control of anything creative that she was involved with. And that was going to rub up against PWL. And I think that was the beginning of the end for them. And I think Let's Get To It, which became the next album, felt a little bit more of a, we're just going to contractually do it. And that's a shame. But that's how these things can work. In terms of the album itself, taking a quick look at one of the editions. So the track listing, we had Better the Devil You Know, which is obviously the initial single release, Step Back in Time, then What Do I Have to Do, which were the releases 2 and 3. We had Secrets, which, if I remember rightly, is very poppy. It's a little bit less mainstream. It's that one kind of mixes between the Enjoy Yourself sound a little bit and into the Rhythm of Love. Always Find the Time, again, still very PWL, very poppy, but it had small elements, small musical elements that were starting to introduce the dance sound. Now, the ones that I think really stand out is Shocked. Things Can Only Get Better. Are the two that stand out that sound a little bit more modern. I think that's definitely the putting the toe into the more modern dance sound that they were after. What Do I Have to Do is, I think the only way I can describe it is it's a great big gay high energy banger. That's it. And it can still be played. And at the time it was played heavily on rotation in gay clubs. They knew what they were doing with that song. They knew the audience. They were all in on the joke. They knew who would like that song. And that was a big hit. Overall, I don't think there's any... Is there anything on here that I don't like? I think The World Still Turns feels a bit... That could have been on one of the other albums. That still feels very PWL. Bubblegum pop, slightly cheesy, bit naff compared to what else is on the album. But overall, in hindsight, looking back at it now, it's a great pop album. It's the defining Kylie album of the PWL era for me. Don't get me wrong, I love the others. I particularly love Let's Get To It. There's some really strong songs on there. I think this is the album that really had a big difference in terms of propelling Kylie to her next steps. So coming up, going to be looking at Let's Get To It in a future video. That'll be available in the coming week, hopefully. So keep an eye out for that one. Please like, please subscribe, please comment. Let me know what songs you like off this album. Why is this album popular for you? What does it mean to you? For me, it absolutely nailed an era of me going out clubbing, of me starting to really explore dance music, and just the songs just connected with me on a personal level with things that were happening. And I will always love Kylie for that. That's why we love her music. She connects with us in different ways. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please stick with me for the next one. And obviously let me know. I've been thinking a little bit about whether to do a Tension era review, I should say. And then working backwards while I'm working forwards from the beginning and meet in the middle? Or shall I just do them all in order and end with Tension? Or whatever else might be out by the time I get around to that one. Who knows? We've got 16 albums to get through. So lots of eras to get through. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you soon.